So the White House had their correspondents' dinner. And I don't think they were expecting this, but they were actually met with pro-Palestinian protesters. You know, I got to give a lot of shout out and credit to the students because they are not giving this up. The students are continuing to fight. They're continuing to express their disappointment and their fury that they have against the Biden administration. So they're basically following Joe Biden around everywhere he goes. And honestly, can you blame them? Politicians have to be held accountable, right? So we want to start off with what happened outside of the events first. So they were met with protesters. I have this video here. It's from Carly. Says now the media is not safe from pro-Palestine protests, which is gathering near the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So obviously, I don't think this person is in favor of the Palestinian protests, but I think the students here, all the people out here, and it's not just students, are doing a bang up job. This is how it should be. Check this out. So what they're saying there, the volume on that video is kind of low, but what they're saying is every time the media lies, a journalist in Gaza dies. So what I think is important about this demonstration is that they're not just calling out Joe Biden and his administration. They're also calling out the media because the media is complicit. They're the ones that spread the narrative from the State Department. They are the ones that are keeping or trying to keep people deceived.
Western media, we see you.
So this is the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And they're telling, again, in this chant, they're saying that they see all the horrors that the media hides.
Western media, we see you. Western media, we see you. You're complicit in genocide too. Western media, we see you. Western media, we see you. You're complicit in genocide too.
So they're saying there at the end, Western media, we see you, you're complicit in genocide too. So it's true. Like all these people are complicit. There's another one here. This one is from Code Pink. You know, Code Pink is everywhere. It says protesters are shutting down the entrance to the White House Correspondents' dinner. So this is a different angle from the protest. And it says right now outside the White House Correspondents' dinner. So these people walking here, this is apparently media, folks. So they're chanting that to them as well. And look at how nice everyone is dressed up, right? They're all out in their fancy digs. And, you know, there's certain people that are invited to this correspondence dinner, like working class people are not invited to this type of event. You know, they got on their suits and their fancy dresses to hang out with other people who are of the same social and, you know, economic status as them. Yeah, so that's another video of the protesters outside of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And then there's this one here from Vince. Vince shared this. He said the crazy chickens are coming home to roost at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I don't know if he's trying to be funny or what, but this video here is another close-up of you can see of the protesters as well.
Why don't you kill? Why don't you fucking cover 34 34,000 people dead. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You are so complicit in this genocide, and you don't even care. We're a spectacle to you.
So you hear what this woman here is saying? She's talking to whoever's holding the camera here. She's saying all these over 30,000 people that have been killed, and you don't even care.
Over 34,000 people dead. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You are so complicit in this genocide, and you don't even care. We're a spectacle to you.
So you guys see this banner here? It says Biden's legacy is genocide. How embarrassing, right? How embarrassing. You would think that Joe Biden has to be embarrassed. And honestly, he might be. You know, some of the things that people are saying the Biden administration has said behind the scenes show that Joe Biden is not happy about his polling numbers, and he's not happy that people are calling him Genocide Joe. But it is what it is. You earned that name, right? So a number of people contacted me and they said that the students should actually protest outside the White House instead of on campus. There are also people protesting outside the White House too. Just FYI, they're not all students, but there are people protesting there. But I think this was a great place for them to demonstrate right outside the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But this is embarrassing for the Democratic Party. Yeah. Very, very interesting there, folks. So that's what happened outside of the dinner. I definitely wanted you to see that people did show up to do the damn thing. Now, think about what I just showed you, because now we're going to go into this segment here from MSNBC, and I want you to listen to the way that they talk about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I want you to think about what I just showed you, because either they're completely delusional or they're told to be delusional. Let's dive in here. This is a doozy.
Back with me, Amisha Cross, former Congressman Joe Walsh, and Tyler Pager. Okay, I want to play a couple sound bites from last night's White House Correspondents' Dinner. The first one is, well, just play what the president had to say about Stormy Daniels, and then the next one will be about Sleepy Joe. Watch these.
Donald has had a few tough days lately. You might call it stormy weather. Age is the only thing we have in common. My vice president actually endorses me.
So do you guys see the first problem? Now, there's all those people protesting outside about the genocide in Gaza. And this panel on MSNBC, they're choosing to focus on Joe Biden's corny jokes. That's what they're choosing to focus on. So you see how they try to hide what's really happening, what the people really feel?
It's after 10 p.m. Sleepy Joe is still awake, while Donald Trump has spent the past week falling asleep in court every morning.
Now, this is Colin Joust. He is one of the actors on SNL. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't watched SNL in a long, long time because they're just not funny anymore. But what this shows you is also how even the entertainment business, how certain parts of that business and certain shows are also a part of the Democratic Party establishment. Let's all remember it was SNL that made that skit recently making fun of Palestinian, protesters. They were making fun of the college students that were protesting against the genocide in Gaza. Yes, SNL did that. SNL did that. The same SNL that was singing, the Hallelujah song after Donald Trump won, and they don't understand why. They didn't understand why Hillary lost. And the reason why people like Hillary lost is because people like Colin Joust and a lot of people part of the Democrat establishment, they're not in touch with working class people. They're not in touch with the people who are living paycheck to paycheck. These people don't associate with people like that. The people at this event are all a part of the same circle. So this is what they are choosing to focus on instead of all those people that were protesting outside of this event. You see where this is going? Let's go back into the panel.
Though Fox News said he was just being anti-woke.
So Tyler, what I found interesting about last night, obviously Colin Jost was going to go after Donald Trump by name and hammer him with jokes. What was, I guess it shouldn't have been surprising to me, but the president going after Donald Trump by name from the very beginning. He did his own Sleepy Don joke in the opening seconds of his remarks. What was the strategy behind the president's speech?
Yeah, so I think we've seen a
pause. So they are focusing on the wrong things. And this is exactly why someone like Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 and Donald Trump won. Look at what they're focusing on right now. When the economy is in shambles, people are struggling to pay bills. There's a genocide happening in Gaza. You have students protesting in campuses all across the country. The protests have spread. And this is what they choose to put their attention on, the fact that Joe Biden made jokes about Donald Trump. I can tell you, if you go into those communities, if you talk to people that are working paycheck to paycheck, if you talk to people that are working multiple jobs, and I've worked multiple jobs, if you talk to people that are in those situations, they're not thinking about this. They're not thinking about Joe Biden made funny jokes about Donald Trump. Chances are they probably didn't even watch that White House Correspondents' Dinner. So who is the Democratic Party tailoring their message towards? Who are they speaking to? They're not speaking to working class people anymore. They haven't done that for decades. They're speaking to people that are part of that elite DC Democrat bubble. That's who they talk to now.
Gradual change from the president. It started with the State of the Union, where he unburdened himself from some of the political trappings, didn't attack Donald Trump by name, but made it clear who he was talking about and delivered quite a political State of the Union address. Coming out of that speech over the last few weeks, he's really just inserted Trump's name into everything. And he's not just attacked him on the policy stuff, but he started to ridicule him and trying to get under his skin. And I think, the president knows that was a highly watched speech. It's one of those speeches that breaks through in a way that his normal appearances don't. And I think they wanted to show him vigorous. They wanted to show that he could take a joke, but they also wanted to really hit hard at those contrasts, that they feel like they have a good story to tell. The president is out there. He's awake late at night, and he's able to crack some jokes as well.
Right. And Amisha,
that's the good story that they have to tell. So did you guys hear what he just said? They have a good story to tell. The fact that Joe Biden is able to make jokes about Donald Trump. That is what they are focusing on. This is why someone like Donald Trump was able to win after Obama. This is why some people who voted for Obama twice turned around and voted for Donald Trump in 2016, because the Democratic Party is not focusing on the right issues. They're not focusing on the issues that the everyday working class person is concerned with in this country. All of these people, they are out of touch. They live in like this elite bubble. And until you get away from that, until you bust that bubble and you get out of your comfort zone, they're never going to really see how people actually feel. And that is why, and I want to add this too, that is why they're alarmed by the number of people that are protesting against Joe Biden. Because if you actually had your ear to the ground, and if they were actually out on the street and not sitting in that studio and they were talking to working class people, they would not be surprised by the number of people that are protesting against this. They would not be surprised that Joe Biden has such a low approval rating. They haven't been talking to those people.
what I thought was I sort of in my own way gasped when I heard the stormy weather joke, because that's the closest I've heard the president even address the court situation that his predecessor finds himself in.
And you are not the only one. I think that that joke in and of itself, though, it was also hilarious. The timing was amazing. It was one that showcased that the president is not afraid to take a punch. To a point you made a moment ago, I think that throughout this campaign cycle, there has been a shift. And part of that, I think, is because there has to be a show of strength from President Biden here. Donald Trump has no problem throwing shade and grenades at everybody. For Biden, he also has to show that strength. He also has to feel the energy in his campaign. And there are a lot of people out here who are Biden supporters who don't want to see Trump again, but also want to see Biden possess a certain level of strength and aggression.
The people who are not happy with Joe Biden, to her point, and the people who also don't want to see Donald Trump again, to her point, They're looking for this type of issue to be addressed. Thank you so much, Gypsy. Gas up to almost $4 a gallon here. They're not looking to hear Joe Biden make jokes. This is not 2008. You can't Barack Obama this. I want to be very clear. In 2008, Obama was able to get away with some of these things in reference to economic issues because he made a couple of jokes. People were like, oh, Obama's kind of cool. He's playing March Madness. He's predicting college basketball wins. See, Obama's kind of hip and cool. He mentioned Tupac and Biggie. We are living in a different time. Natalie says almost $5 a gallon for gas in Washington state. So these are the things that people are worried about, not whether or not Joe Biden can make a joke.
That's it, Jonathan. Biden has one obstacle. Voters want to see that he's up to it. I love it that he goes after Trump. Trump's a jerk. Trump's cruel. And Biden rightly believes Trump is unfit. So say it and call him out by name. And it's the double whammy of it shows the voters that Biden can do it.
But it's one thing to stand there in black tie at an event that is a roast, at an event where it's all about the comedy and can you land the joke. It's another to say those same things at an actual campaign event.
He should.
You think he should replicate the stormy weather joke on the campaign trail?
I don't know about the joking. Sure, blend in some humor, but go after Trump by name. He's unfit. Go after every aspect of him.
And that's the strategy from the Biden campaign increasingly is that they want to make this a clear choice.
Let me just pause here. This gentleman right here, with the gray hair that was just speaking, he's a former representative, right? Like, so it is just, why do all of these people have to come together on a panel and tell Joe Biden how to run his own campaign? That's when you know you have a weak candidate. And it's not just this show, it's show after show where I'm seeing people say, tell Joe Biden to do this. We're going to give Joe Biden advice about this. That's when you know you have a weak campaign.
Choice. Yeah. You can there's two candidates that have plausible pathways to the presidency, ignoring the third party candidates. It's Biden or Trump. And so the Biden campaign wants to make that binary choice very clear to voters. And so I think we're going to continue to see an even more aggressive Biden, as aggressive as he's able to get against Trump, to sort of make that very clear to voters that there's two options here.
Amisha?
Absolutely. Biden has to create and paint this narrative because we can't assume that the average voter is watching wall-to-wall coverage of what's going on in the trial. He has to be able to go out there and say exactly what it is, call a thing, name and shame. People are looking for that.
I have to jump in here as well. The average voter does not care about Donald Trump's trial. Talking to people on the street, the average voter does not care. There's a reason why, we'll get into the poll in just a second. There's a reason why Donald Trump is now beating Joe Biden again. And there's a reason why Biden has now been ranked as the least popular president in 70 years. They're saying even below Nixon and Carter. And we all know Carter did not win re-election. Carter also had a primary challenge, which was Ted Kennedy, but he didn't win re-election, right? So listen to this. This just broke. Biden is the least popular president in 70 years. This is embarrassing for the Democratic Party. It is a low blow for Joe. I like that they started off the article that way. It's a low blow for Joe. Biden is the least popular commander in chief at this point of his presidency in the last 70 years. Below even Richard Nixon and Jimmy Carter. This is according to a new poll. That poll is a Gallup poll. Biden 81 notched a dismal 38.7% job approval rating for the first quarter of 2024. 38.7%. Now I have to remind you, let's go back to at least Bill Clinton, because this is what I remember. Going all the way back to Bill Clinton, no presidential incumbent had an approval rating this low and won re-election. Not one. Approval rating of 38.7%. 3 points lower than that of the one-term George H.W. Bush at the same point in his presidency. Now, remember, under George H.W. Bush, remember we had, 9/11 happened. Remember the economy was bad during that time as well. We also had war. How do you get lower than? Let's go on. With about 6 months remaining for Election Day, Biden stands in a weaker position than any prior incumbent. I told you. Here we go. Here's the abandoned Biden activist here. Ceasefire now. This is wild. It goes on to say, in contrast, now listen to this. Former President Donald Trump, who is vying with Biden for a second White House term, had a 46.8% approval rating at this point in his presidency. So when Trump was president, his approval rating at this point was 46.8%, and he lost re-election. Doobie-doobie-doo. So if people expect Joe Biden to come back and win with such a low approval rating, think about that for a second. Even Nixon and Carter had higher ratings than Biden, with 53.7% and 47.7% respectively, and Eisenhower had the highest rating at 73.2%. The results of Gallup presidential approval poll, which the organization has compiled since the presidency of Eisenhower began in 1952, have been strongly predictive of re-election success. Historically, every incumbent in the past 7 decades with an approval rating above 50% has won a second term. Only Barack Obama bucked this trend. His 2012 victory came despite a middling 46 approval 6 months ahead of that year's general election. And then after that, Donald Trump won. You have to focus on the economy. That is the number one issue. You talk to voters, they will tell you the economy, the number one thing. No first-term president in Gallup's history has returned to the White House with approval numbers as low as Biden's, whose results this quarter ranked among the worst of the post-World War II era and the bottom 12% of all presidential quarters going back to 1945. And I got to say this. Some of us tried to warn people about this in 2020 because Joe Biden was not polling at number one. Joe Biden didn't win Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada. It wasn't until Jim Clyburn gave his endorsement for South Carolina that all of a sudden he came around and won South Carolina. That was when things shifted. There are a couple other things that happened in there that we can add in. Elizabeth Warren choosing to stay in on Super Tuesday when she knew at that point in time she had no chance. Obviously, that didn't help Bernie Sanders, of course. Although I have many criticisms of Bernie Sanders today, though, because he's still going to tell you to support Joe Biden. He's already telling you that. But this is what happens when you push a candidate. By you, I mean the DNC and the media, you push a candidate that the people really didn't want. And so what happened is a lot of people that went out to vote weren't really voting for Joe Biden. They were voting against Donald Trump. That means that Joe Biden did not develop a solid base when he was running for president. I never saw anybody with a Biden-Harris sign in their yard here in Eastern Massachusetts, in Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, etc. But somehow he won this state. Now, make it make sense, guys. Let's think about that. You mean to tell me all the people that came out and voted in Massachusetts were voting because they loved Joe Biden? No, they were voting because they did not want Donald Trump again. So he never developed a solid base. So if you win because people were voting against the other person and not so much for you, then during your term, you have to actually deliver. And Biden has not delivered. And that is part of the reason why his polling numbers are so low. And then we get to this as well. Now we see that Trump maintains lead over Biden in 2024 matchup as views on other presidencies diverge. Look at this. We got to see this poll that also just came out. This came out Sunday. I told you the weekend was wild. It was wild and crazy. Trump support in the poll among registered voters holds steady at 49% in a head-to-head matchup against Biden, the same as in CNN's last national poll on the race in January, while Biden stands at 43%, not significantly different from January's 45%. So Biden has decreased. Trump is still holding steady at 49%. Looking back, 55% of all Americans now say they see Trump's presidency as a success. Let me back this up. This is wild. I'm going to highlight this for all the people who want to ignore this. And you ain't got to support Trump. I'm not voting for Trump. I don't support Donald Trump. But you don't have to be a Trump supporter to acknowledge what is happening right before our eyes and to call out the writing on the wall. It is very clear, ladies and gentlemen. Looking back, 55% of all Americans now say they see Trump's presidency as a success, while 44% see it as a failure. In a January 2021 poll taken just before Trump left office and days after January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, 55% considered his time as a president as a failure. So think about this, folks. Things have changed. Now that people have had time with Joe Biden's presidency, 55% of the people that were against Donald Trump's presidency and thought it was a failure after January 6th, now that has flipped. Now 55% of all Americans say they see Trump's presidency as a success. And I can already tell you the issues that they are talking about. Number one is the economy. And number two is going to be immigration. And I don't agree with the way that Trump handled the immigration issues. I don't agree with kids in cages, but kids are still in cages. I don't agree with him trying to reverse the law for the dreamers. I don't agree with that. But if you sat up there and you called out kids being in cages under Donald Trump's presidency, which, by the way, the cages were built by Barack Obama. He was the one who implemented the cages in the first place. I see a lot of people call that out. You should still have that same criticism right now, knowing that kids are still in cages and Joe Biden is president. And this is where you will see the mask fall off for a lot of people that had tears at the border. AOC with her photo op, crying and getting her Academy Award. No tears now that those kids are still in cages, that Joe Biden is president. But the number one issue is the economy. It goes on to say here, assessing Biden's time in the office so far, 61% say his presidency thus far has been a failure. 61%, while 39% say it's been a success. That is narrowly worse than the 57% who called the first year of his administration a failure in January 2022, with 41% calling it a success. And then there's this part. Republicans now are more unified around the idea that Trump's presidency was a success than Democrats are that Biden's has been one. And then there's the war in Gaza. That is not helping Joe Biden's poll numbers. But I'll say these things and people will say, are you crazy? You want Donald Trump? What is wrong with you? No, I'm a realist. And I look at data. One thing I can tell you is the numbers aren't lying, folks. So there's a problem. There's a big problem. And so while the panel on MSNBC, they're talking about Joe Biden being so strong because he's making jokes about Donald Trump. And they are completely ignoring the economic concerns that a lot of Americans have, most voters. And they're ignoring this. And they're focusing on the fact that Joe Biden's making jokes, and they're ignoring the protesters that were outside of the event protesting against Joe Biden. These are a lot of young people, and there's some older people out there too. There's a giant banner that says Genocide Joe, and they are ignoring this. And they're talking about he's strong because he made jokes. We live in a cartoon. Let's go to some of the comments here. What a mess. Ravina said, this is not for the workers. No, those events are not for the working peeps. Crystal says all those DC people live in a bubble. Yes, they do. And it's true. You go to DC and you see it, right? Like I have family that live in the area. You go to DC and you see it. It's like just one big bubble. It's a weird place to be because it's like even talking about third parties, even thinking about supporting third party options, even when Bernie was running through the Democratic Party, that DC bubble is strong within the Dem establishment. And anything outside of that, people just give you a side eye. Thank you, Metal, for the super chat. Joe Biden for prison 2024. That would be an interesting shirt, too. Thank you, Cool Blue. When it began in 1975, SNL was anti-establishment. They have changed over the years, buddy. I remember when SNL was funny. I haven't laughed at an SNL skit. Let me think. I think the last one I laughed at was when Dave Chappelle was on there, and it was right after Trump won, and Dave Chappelle was making fun of how the liberals were just so naive in reference to that election. That was probably the last one I laughed at. But SNL to me hasn't really been funny since, the Adam Sandler, Chris Farley crew. That's when I thought it was really funny. Teddy says pivoting back to Trump is not helping the hoi polloi in America. It is one reason why the Dems are going to lose. There you go. Thank you, Cool Blue. MSNBC, religion for loyal Democratic Party voters. Thank you, Baby Ethernet. Biden failed his way to the top. Scary business. It's kind of unheard of, right? How you fail at the top? You fail up the ladder. Thank you for the super chat, Hakim. And thank you for the super sticker, Cool Blue. April 26, 2024. Gallup reports Biden job approval is 38.7%. That is not a position for re-election. For the Democrats, even if they replaced Biden, to hold White House, to be able to hold U.S. popular vote. Makes you wonder about the House seats, too. And thank you, David. LeVar Burton blocked me when I said getting Biden elected shouldn't be seen as victory, and folks ought to not fall asleep just because Trump is out. Reading Rainbow, LeVar Burton? What? Not reading Rainbow. Reading Rainbow. Some of you might be too young to know what that is, but some of us know. We know about reading Rainbow. I can go anywhere. It's in a book. Just take a look. Reading Rainbow. Geordi from Star Trek Next Generation, LeVar Burton. Geordi was one of my favorite characters. He was the engineer. He had the little visor and he could see like infrared. Yeah. Damn you, LeVar Burton. Damn you. All right. Let's go to the next story. LeVar Burton must be wearing defective blinders. Like what? Oh my God. Fred said not Kunta. I know, right? Not you. Damn you, LeVar. Giga said Whoopi and LeVar sat in the holodeck. Yep. If you've never seen Star Trek Next Generation, you got to watch it, man. Star Trek Next Generation was the jam. That's the only one I really liked, to be honest. But what? Gamer said he's pro-Israel. Gosh, damn it. They got all of them. I know, Katrina. I know. No. Oh man, this sucks. JB said Kunta Kinte blocked you. Gosh, damn. I didn't even know LeVar Burton was on Twitter, but wow. Interesting.